Hello, welcome to Pre-Primary Sources, where we look at the research base behind all kinds of different claims that are made in early childhood. I'm Liz Nolasco, and I'm here today with Tiffany Pearsall. There was a little bit of a
Okay.
delay.
I said hello. Nice to meet you all.
So I want to start
Beautiful.
with a question for you, Tiffany. What did you learn in school or like
Yes,
in
I'm
your first
ready.
early childhood jobs about coloring pages?
Uh, I learned absolutely nothing. When I was in like as a teacher, it was viewed as very much like a time killer or like an extra, hey, you have extra time. You finished your actual work early. Here, do this coloring page. As a student, as a child, I remember really like getting to that point in the day where I could sit and color was something I really looked forward to. And anytime an assignment had any sort of like basic black and white outline feature, I sure as heck got out my Pentel marker case made of plastic and colored every inch of that everything. Um, and I don't remember a lot of like crafty activities as a kid, but I do remember a lot of coloring, man. There was a lot of like, oh, you finished your writing early, make sure you draw a nice picture and color it in. Or here, you know,
Ooh,
here's the real work, and then the coloring is the last half kind of a thing. What about you?
yes. I have similar memories. I think it's funny because listening to you talk about coloring, I think of the assignments that I hated or like the free time things that I refused to do, which were the paint by number or color by number. Because apparently I've always had a streak
Mm-hmm.
of like, fuck you, I do what I want. But but I did like the free
Yeah.
coloring. I have a very distinct memory of having a princess coloring book and coloring each
Mm.
like section of probably Belle's dress a different color and then realizing, oh, I guess this is all one cohesive unit. And then the next page I color the whole thing, yellow or whatever, and having that moment of, oh,
Yeah,
okay, wait,
yeah.
I get it now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But then as a teacher, I was opposed to coloring sheets. I like if other people brought them in, it was like fine. But I was actually really uptight
Yeah.
about them, I think. um,
Yeah, I feel like I went through a similar phase and then quickly was like, but wait, I love coloring too much to exclude it from my life in this way. And I know that like it's for the kids, everything you do is for the kids, and what you're supposed to do is for the kids. But it's such a lovely way to get adults interacting with kids that I just like couldn't get rid of it. I can't. I always have coloring pages now, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that later, but I just love
yeah.
them. I'm a coloring page pro over here, and I feel like I'm often an island in a sea of play-based education and childhood learning in my love of coloring pages.
And this is why I wanted to talk to you because you are one of the smartest, most thoughtful people I know. And we are had been so diametrically opposed on this. Like it blew my mind when we were talking about coloring pages like years ago. So I was like, oh, okay, now I have to ask her. So would you like to guess how many articles I found that were actually directly related to coloring pages in young children?
Ooh, my guess would be zero.
Two,
Maybe one, two. Oh, that's
and a book
higher
that
than I
mentions them.
expected. Oh, lovely.
So,
Tell me more.
yeah.
What were the basis? What was
So
this?
very little written about coloring pages. The one article that I thought was super interesting was from 1981. And that is called
Hmm.
Coloring Book Type Experiences and Children's Divergent Pictorial Production. Pictorial
Ooh,
Production. Um,
ooh.
but that is exactly what I was looking for. So even though it is older than either of us, it is it did the thing that I was hoping it would do. So it did its primary
Excellent.
question was like, do coloring books actually inhibit children's creativity? Because that was my primary objection, right? It was we can't have coloring books because that's
Hmm.
telling the children what things should look like. And we want them to make their own,
Hmm.
um, incorporate their own ideas into them. And so that fell
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
line with Viktor Lowenfeld, who wrote the book Creative and Mental Growth in 1947, which
Ooh.
is where this first article cited as the origin of opposition to coloring pages. I should also say in this
Mm-hmm.
1947 book, the author throws some shade at teachers who are giving, coloring pages to learn about like George Washington and Thanksgiving. And he's like, and this is just busy work, basically. So his take is very similar to the modern interpretation by a lot of play-based educators of like, why would you, the children aren't getting anything meaningful from it. He also said in the preface,
Yeah.
it also seems to me of little use to emphasize, as has been frequently done, that the working process is of greater importance than the final outcome without analyzing the reasons behind this opinion. Which sounds a whole lot like the refrain that we always hear, process over
Yeah.
product. So I don't know if
Uh-huh.
that's the original origin because he's saying, people have been saying it for a long time, but it was the oldest
Uh-huh.
sample
Uh-huh.
of it that I've seen.
Interesting. Interesting.
Oh, and I did read another, not all of another book. I read parts of another book. This is where Heather and I differ. She reads whole books. I read little snippets of everything. There was Nurturing Creativity, an Essential Mindset for Young Children's Learning by Rebecca Isbell and Sonia Akiko Yoshizawa. Because I figured really the
Sounds
heart
like
of
a good
this
one.
is, yeah, so like the heart of this is, are we stifling children's creativity? But I guess that's the question I'm coming in with. Are you coming in with something different? Is that where your brain is at? Where do you see coloring pages and drawing and coloring fitting in?
I see it as wholly separate from creative process.
Mm,
So it's interesting to me to talk about coloring pages as like, does this stifle the creative process? When to me, it's like asking, like, does playing on the slide stifle a creative process? Does reading a book stifle a creative process? To me, it uses a fully different set of brain and skill set. And the way that we use it in our classroom is so much more about relationship than it is about creativity
mm.
that I'm feeling like it's an apples and oranges conversation. I think that might be where I am an outlier in the coloring page world because I don't see it as a stepping block to a creative artistic process. I see it as a conversation piece that involves a process.
I love this. So it's sort of like making cookies with kids because of you're enjoying making cookies with kids versus like we're making cookies and that completely undoes all of our nutrition education if we,
Yes.
like they're two
Yes,
separate things.
100% yes. 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 I also think that there is so much pressure in process-based settings that kids are using their creative skills to make meaning all of the time. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just want to like practice using a crayon in a way that's non-performative. And that's where I feel like coloring pages for me are such a non-performative practice that lets you use the tools in a way that feels productive to kids and practice with the tools in a way that feels productive for kids in a way that isn't pressured on a product, which is crazy because I feel like open-ended art is so not pressured on a product, but at the same time, it's like, here's this blank page. What are you going to do with it? Whereas when you see a coloring page, my thought isn't, what am I going to do with this coloring page? My thought is, what tool do I want to use most right now to just see how it moves? And I find that
That's
particularly helpful for like when you think about your average 5-year-old boy, they're
mm-hmm.
not really interested in those fine motor, slow down things. And for my son in particular, he wants to feel like he's doing something meaningful all the time. And so I see kids that would not opt into an art experience, opt into a coloring experience because we can do it together, we can do it side by side, we can do it for 2 seconds. And there's not this like whole experience just by being a blank page being communicated to them. Your
I love
turn.
that. I
Ready,
think,
go.
yeah. The idea of taking pressure off by adding constraints is super interesting. It makes me think of Rye, actually, right? Where we offer children these guide rails, and so it lets them have that freedom within boundaries versus, yeah,
Yes.
the wide open page and crayons and here you go, kids. And yeah, I also live with an
Mhm.
almost 5-year-old boy, and he does not particularly care to color anything that looks like a thing. He was drawing this morning,
Mm,
he was drawing bridges this morning, but the focus was on drawing the bridge. It didn't have to look like a bridge. It was just the fact that there were lines going over the river that was important. So
mhm,
I
mhm.
really appreciate your stance there, right? Because as an educator, I'm going, okay, I love what he's doing. I love the story he's telling. And also like, does he have the fine motor control to do the things that he's going to need to be doing? Right? Like it's hard to let go of
Right?
that sense
Yeah,
versus a
yeah.
coloring book where, yeah, of course he can, color the pictures and have a good time. And then I guess that there's that adult
Mhm,
influence, right? Where even if we say we're process oriented, what are the pictures that get centered on the bulletin board or the walls, right? Are we really making effort to
mhm.
show all children's work of their full process, which is hard to do when you've got, 8 or 12 or 16 kids in a room and you can't necessarily take down everybody's dictation or record their process. Um,
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Um,
so
I would also say I think that the choice of what coloring pages you're bringing in is a very big factor to me. Like, I generally hate coloring books, but I love a coloring page, and I think that there's a lot of care that gets communicated in like choosing coloring pages together and um, what something that we just started doing is we draw a lot on the whiteboards. And so there's one kid in particular who draws these epic monsters, and we'll scan it and then print that out and have that available for them to paint or color or fill in with color and add to in whatever way they want. Um, and so I think that that's like a big piece for us is the relationship of a coloring page. I think that they're a really lovely way, and a time when we use them the most is when we have a new student start. It's, what do you love the most? What are your favorite animals? Let's print out a variety. And then suddenly all of your friends are here at the table wanting to try this new black ink paint to paint the black bears. And it just feels like everyone's rallying behind you in that moment. And
yeah,
yes, that can happen with other art supplies, but I feel like the immediate response of a fresh coloring page is different. It's just different.
I like that. And I kind of want to jump from there to what Lowenfeld said about the coloring pages, because you were talking about the freedom and that the ability to not be so inhibited by all of the thought, right? And I feel like you're on the same page,
Mhm,
and yet came to two
mhm.
distinct conclusions because of your focuses. So Lowenfeld says,
Yeah.
let us assume that the first picture the child has to fill in is that of a dog. As soon as the child is confronted with the task of following a predetermined outline, we have prevented him from solving his own relationships creatively. His relationship to a dog may be one of love, friendship, dislike, or fear. There is no opportunity for him to express his relationship and thus relieve himself of tensions of joy, hatred, or fear. There is no place in coloring books to express anxieties.
Hmm.
He most of this book is a very psychodynamic take on drawing and coloring. He spends a lot of time on talking about two children, one of whom they were both looking at a tree outside and drawing the tree, and one of them spent a lot of time coloring the buds and the blossoms because that was where his focus was, and another one completely ignored them because the tree to him was a thing to climb, so the branches were infinitely more important than drawing each single bud and blossom, right? And so this
Yeah,
idea
yeah.
of drawing reflecting where the child's focus is was really where he was looking. And he also talked about another child
Hmm.
drawing a picture of his family and drawing one particular person in great detail because he just loved them so much.
Yes, I do love when children draw families and are very hyper aware of like, this is grandpa and his hat. He always wears
Yes.
this hat. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. But
I
I
would
wonder though, I think
counter
it's
his
mhm,
I counter his argument a lot with like where he's not giving children very much credit. You can absolutely express feelings and thoughts and anxieties through choice
mhm,
and through like the same expressive force and like emotive art use when there's already lines on the page. Like people have entire
mhm.
jobs. Their job is being a colorist
Right.
for books and movies and animation and like try to tell those people that you can't express anxieties through color choices. Like I don't see that. I understand where he's coming from that like, if there's a dog already on the page. I just feel like the kid who's going to come and the choice is really important for me. One, coloring pages
Mhm,
are never forced. They're always just on the shelf. Sometimes we put them out if like we saw a Stellar's J today and I print out a picture of a Stellar's J and then they can either use it or not. Half of them don't even look at the table. Like I feel like that
mhm,
choice is a part of it and give kids more credit than that. I think about this with loose parts a lot that um, if you put out the open-ended toys, then the kids can imagine anything is anything. And I always counter that but aren't kids smarter than that? Like one of our favorite loose parts toys is a stupid pink toy camera that is frequently a roast chicken in a dish. Like I can't, I'd
yes.
love to get rid of it because I think it's ugly and it's kind of broken. And now there's like weird glue stuck in it from some decoration we did. But like we also have to understand that kids are smart and will do what they need to do. And sometimes
Mhm,
what they need to do is relax with a brand new marker. And sometimes what
right.
they need to do is scribble green all over the whole thing as fast as they can so they can cut it out and feel like they've made something. Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, that brought up when I was in Girl Scouts and I had to do a latch hook rug, and I hated the whole thing so
Ooh,
much. But I can
but you had no
understand why some people
choice.
were satisfied by it. Yes. Yeah, no, that's what I'm getting at. Like I do understand
Hmm.
why it might be satisfying to complete this
Hmm.
task that's laid out and all the colors are pre-picked and you just move the hook through the little grid mesh thing. And so yeah,
Hmm.
there's definitely a satisfaction of like it is finished, it looks like it's supposed to, and I am glad to have accomplished that. So I do understand that.
Hmm. Hmm. I also think coloring pages allow you to be present without speaking
Mm-hmm.
in a way that regular art is such a conversational piece. And maybe that's just our group
Mm.
that like the open-ended art, because we also have open-ended art open at all times. We have multiple types of paint out at all times. We have the glue and like everything is just out all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
the art table is like rocking, social. We're here to talk about what we're doing, and I need some of that and put that in the middle. But the coloring station is always just like, oh, I just need a minute to like feel like I've got, I just need to sit for a minute. And then to have all those people at a table together and sitting quietly together is interesting. And it's also interesting when one child feels that way and sets up the whole table for everyone and
Aw.
says, "Hey, like I would like a buddy to do this. I'm gonna pick, we have this huge bin of all sorts of coloring pages, and it's almost like looking through a photo album, right? Because you've got like, oh, we printed all of these out in summertime when we went to the creek and saw these trout. And oh, we printed all these out now on the first day that it snowed. We printed out all the snowflakes for them to use for whatever. And
Mhm.
so they can like go back in time and then like set it all out and invite people to join them in this calm vibe. See, I just
I
really
love
love
that.
coloring pages.
It's such a distinct purpose. I love that you see them so differently, right? The coloring pages, because I
Mm-hmm.
guess my focus is still on this idea of express relieving anxieties through drawing versus the coloring pages, which, the
Mm-hmm.
anxiety might be present, it might be depicted on the page, and also it might just be a regulating experience of like, I don't have the brain power to
Yes.
completely originate an entire piece of art right now. I can sit down, I can
Yes.
mindfully color, and I can relieve that
Hmm.
anxiety and those sensations and regulate that way.
Hmm.
Um,
And I
so
also think, what if the anxiety is I'm a perfectionist and I know that I want to draw this dog and I don't feel like I have the skills yet? Because
right.
I see that a lot with our like super whip smart kids, right? They're either so
Mhm.
into the storytelling and they love it and it enriches their lives, or they are so anti because they acknowledge I can't draw very well and I want to
Yeah.
be able to, and I want my hand to be able to, therefore I won't engage. And that to me is a perfect candidate for a coloring page because they get to feel like, oh, I did this thing. Oh, I completed something and it looks great to me. And the first step that I was worried about is already done for me. So I can experience the whole rest of the experience without that pressure to draw a thing the way I want it to look. And that's not to say that I don't want them to practice drawing things and to have that like expressive, I draw because I feel experience too. I just don't want them to only have that experience. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
I absolutely. And that is the perfect pathway to the two experiments that I could find about drawing and coloring books.
Mm.
Now the two might be interrelated. Um,
Yes.
so the one from the book, from Creative and Mental Growth, I could not find
Hmm.
a lot of detail on exactly how old the children were. He does say it's primary school, so I'm assuming kindergarten for second grade. And honestly, I should look this up. 1947. I don't believe kindergarten was established, but I've got to go back and look at that. Or if it was, it
Mm.
wasn't universal for sure.
I'll look it up while you
So
talk.
oh, thank you. So I think it was like probably 6-ish to 7-ish year olds. And so he talks about this experiment where children were asked to draw a bird. And I'll put these images up on Facebook or some accessible way if people are interested. And the child drew a really lovely detailed bird based on the picture. I'm guessing 6 to 8 year old child. It was a good bird. And then the child the next day was asked to color seven, the M-shaped birds that you draw that are like flying away in the distance. And then the
Yeah.
child, after completing that, was asked again to draw a bird, and they drew that M bird. So Lowenfeld took that as evidence that the coloring books were stealing creativity, right? It was imposing these adult ideas of what the bird should look like on the child, who then lost their drive to make their very personal bird. But children's Divergent Pictorial production did a very similar task. They had 64 kindergartners and first graders. And so there's something that I could not find any literature on called the Make a Tree test. And so that is looking at there are three dimensions of the Make a Tree test that are scored. So there's appropriateness, like to what extent does the child's product look like a tree? Unusualness, is the child's product like similar to that of a lot of other children, or is it novel? And difference, considering the appropriateness and the unusualness, to what extent has the child been able to follow the instructions to make their second tree different from the first, right? So the make a tree test is 2 sessions of making a tree. um,
Okay.
and so in this test, each child is given gummed geometric stickers, and just that they need to specify that the stickers are gummed really dates this article, and it kind of gave me some joy because of course stickers are sticky. But 1981.
Does that mean they
uh,
licked the back like an envelope is gummed?
I think possibly, because I don't know how else they would be gummed. uh, so they're given
Okay.
these
Okay. Carry on.
stickers that kind of look like tangram pieces, right? There's circles, squares, parallelograms, diamonds, maybe. I have the images, I just don't have them right in front of me. So they're given blank
Hmm.
paper, they're made a tree. The second session, which happens either somewhere between one day and 1 week later, the child is shown their tree from the first session and asked to make a tree that is different from, but as good as the first tree with the same materials.
Hmm. Okay.
So what this experiment did was similar but different. they their
Okay.
first the pretest, instead of having them make a tree with the gummed stickers, they were given one of three coloring pages. So one was a simple tree, just very straightforward. One that was more complex, that would have scored highly on unusualness and appropriateness. And one coloring page that was
Hmm.
just the geometric shapes scattered on the page. And then the following day, they were given the test with the gummed stickers, and the children were instructed to make a tree that was different but as good as the tree yesterday that they could look at.
Okay.
And lo and behold, the children who had colored the more complex tree were able to make a tree that looked different, but still scored actually a little bit higher in unusualness and appropriateness than the children who had the abstract pages or the more simple tree.
Hmm.
So
Lo
very
and
different
behold, I'm
results.
not shocked by this at all.
Yeah, you didn't I
Uh,
didn't think you would be.
yeah, no. And this actually ties into uh, a naturalist that I deeply love. His name is John Muir Laws, and he
Mhm.
has amazing workshops on how to draw stuff. And he like makes bird guides for the Sierras, and he illustrates them himself, and he does cool workshops if you ever get a chance to see him speak. He in particular has a workshop on creativity, and in it he talks about bird drawing and how when you draw a bird, you're either in the pre-feather stage or the post-feather stage. And that means
Ooh.
that you either know a type of bird so well that you draw the individual feathers on its body, or you draw the outline, right?
Hmm.
Pre-feather, post-feather. And that is like the crux of drawing and creativity to me, is that if you know something so well that you draw every feather on its body,
Mhm.
then you know that thing so deeply that of course it will be interesting and unique every time. And so thinking about this tree experiment, the children that were given a tree that taught them about the tree, that helped move them into a deeper pre-feather stage, right? Like
Mhm.
the 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 page that gave them new information was the page that helped them be creative with that information. And I'm not surprised by that at all.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And so
What
that's
I
actually where mhm.
what I really love to see is like, what if you just went out and showed those children trees and talked about the trees? Like, how much deeper would those experiences be? But that's a different conversation for a different day.
Right. Yeah. No, but I think you're on the right path. But I think it's an interesting take on the way communication happens across time, right? Like recorded media is kind
Yeah.
of the closest thing we have to time travel because we can hear and see what people were thinking from whatever time ago that they made it. And
Yeah.
so children are still engaging in this form, I think, of social constructivism, where they're taking these adult or other generated models and building off of them with their own unique take, right? Like this experiment was showing that the regardless of which picture the children had, they did model it with their own input, right? And it was just that gentle cueing
Mm-hmm.
of different than what you did yesterday, whereas the bird picture was just make birds, right? So when we
Mm-hmm.
support the children to incorporate the knowledge that they've received previously, they're able to
Mm-hmm.
grow, and which is so distinct from when we're asking them to just replicate.
Yes, absolutely. And that replication, just like draw a bird after having been told to draw a bird in this way, like I'm gonna try
Right.
to ace that test too. I'm not gonna do it my own way, you know?
Yeah. Right,
Uh,
exactly. When you're setting those expectations appropriately, right? Like you were talking earlier about how
mhm.
you set out the coloring pages for the children and how you have your art materials out and available, and they're all acceptable to use, right? You were saying your art table is
Mhm.
always out and the coloring pages are available but not always out. Is that, am I remembering that right?
Yes, yeah, yep. I mean, they're out. They're just like in a basket on a shelf they can reach.
Hmm.
But like setting them up as an invitation is a different ordeal.
Right. Okay, yeah. So it's that same idea of it's building from that invitation that you're talking about, as opposed to the blank
Hmm
slate,
hmm
right?
hmm Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I also think that this maybe doesn't have anything to do with the social construction concept we're talking about, but um, seeing the coloring page as not the final product is also a big part of our vibe. Like 9 times out of 10, we color it and then we either cut it out and tape it to a wall somewhere. The kids do.
mhm.
By we, I mean the kids. Or they color it and then they start cutting it and then they chop it up into 1,000 tiny pieces. And then they put those pieces in a little Ziploc bag and carry around in their pocket. Like, they're using it as just another tool in their art box.
So they still have the freedom to create as they see fit. They just also have this extra
Yes.
scaffolding to do it with.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm also reminded of like, I'm trying to learn how to paint with watercolors. And
Mhm.
so for me to just go from a blank page to practicing the craft that is watercolors is a big step. And my family got me a like learn to watercolor by painting these birds. Each page teaches you a new skill
Ooh.
workbook essentially. And
Mhm.
it's lovely because I'm not focusing on the art. I'm focusing on the skill and the craft. And I think so often that we put so much emphasis on letting children be free and create in the way they want to create. And yes, I love that too. But you also like need skills to continue to create, right? Like
Mhm.
part of that creative process is learning a craft and getting good at a craft and enjoying a craft and wanting to play within the constraints of that craft. And I think that kids also like that too.
And we've arrived at Lillian Katz and her academic skills supporting intellectual skills, right?
Yeah.
There are
Always comes
discrete
back to Lillian
skills.
Katz.
It always comes back to Lillian Katz. There are discrete skills that need to be learned to support the continued growth and experimentation and work that children and adults and everybody is doing, right? That nobody's saying that
hmm
they're unimportant. They just need to be in service
hmm
of the higher intellectual goals rather than goals on their own.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes.
All
I
right.
don't
So I
really have anything to say on that one. So if you want to jump in, get me going again, will ya?
right, no, that's it. That's Lillian Katz mic drop. I would like to issue a challenge because truly, if anybody knows any other research on coloring books or coloring pages, I am dying to read it. I did a fair amount of searching over every database that I have access to via public library, work, everything else. And really, there is so little. And so I'm generally
So
not in
little.
favor of saying like experiment on children, but also I'd be so curious if anybody is interested in, doing a modified make a tree test where you have your coloring page with this outline and then, hey, can you do something that's like this but different with, blank paper and crayons? I am dying to see what happens. So, you know, don't just go out and
Yeah.
experiment willy-nilly on other people's children, but also if it's an invitation to, play at
Yeah.
your center or family childcare,
Yeah.
give me a heads
And
up.
like
I'd like
being
to
a
hear about
teacher
it.
researcher is what makes us great teachers, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I'm all for it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany, for your time and love of coloring books and your invitation for me to reconsider what a coloring book is and means and can be.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All
And
right.
thanks for like challenging me along the way to, push for more storytelling in our art and not just focus on our craft because the craft is the most fun for me.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
We're going to pause here for a word from an actual child. because frankly, at the end of the day, we can read all the research in the world, but if we're ignoring the children in front of us, we're really not doing the work that is involved in examining our practice. So I would like to take a moment to thank Guy, age 8, and Tiffany for her investigative journalism about one 8-year-old's opinions on coloring pages.
Guy, tell me, I'm going to interview you, professional interview. What do you like coloring pages? What are your feelings? What are your thoughts and feelings about coloring pages?
Coloring pages feel good to me when they are at the right place for a challenge and it's not too hard, and it gives me something to do when I'm bored and something that keeps me calm when I'm overactive.
Do you feel like they how do they impact your creativity? Or do they? Maybe they don't. I don't know.
They do not impact my creativity. They expand my creativity. I like doing coloring pages because it helps me think of stuff that I can draw and I can tell my friends about.
So it like gets you into flow state and then you're ready to do art after?
Yes.
Interesting. Any other thoughts on the matter? Do you have like a favorite type of coloring page?
I love the swirl art coloring pages.
What does that mean? If somebody had never seen one before, how would you describe it with words?
Swirl arts are when you only use swirls to make pieces of art.
Okay. So you like swirl a coloring page?
Yeah.
Judy, we're talking about coloring pages. Do you like coloring pages?
Yeah, coloring pages.
Watercoloring pages?